All right, welcome everyone to RightTool for QuickBooks Online, May 2023 update. We are working currently on version 1.012.15, but by the time you watch this webinar, there might be a newer version, but just so you know, everything that has been added or updated up to May 10th, up to today's webinar, is going to be covered today. Now, just a quick reminder, RightTool is not associated with Intuit or QuickBooks. We are a third-party tool associated to work in conjunction with QuickBooks. Without a QuickBooks Online subscription, RightTool doesn't do anything. So you need to be connected to your QuickBooks Online account, and you need to have RightTool installed in your browser as an extension for this to work. If this is your very first time ever touching RightTool, just pay attention to the webinar and then go back and watch some of the basic videos so you can download and install that, because we're pretty advanced at this point. If you're watching this video, you probably have already been using RightTool in some capacity, and you're here excited to see what May 2023 has to offer. I'm going to put a link to the slides because I know some people like to have the slides with them while they're watching the webinar. It's a thing. Typically, accountants can't live without the slides, or they'll freak out if you don't give them access to the slides. So I'll put a link to the slides in the live chat, so you can see that in there if you want to see them. And there's a link to the April update that we did exactly a month ago, a little bit over a month ago, and we talked about a whole slew of new features that were covered there. And also there's the link to our RightTool YouTube channel, where we are proactively uploading tutorials to every single thing that RightTool can do, and the website that has the release notes. So every time there's something new, you can see the release notes up there. So when we are finished doing this webinar, this is being recorded, we're going to post it into YouTube, and then in YouTube, we'll have a link to the slides as well. All right. Okay, so this is today's agenda. First, we're going to cover the free features that were added in May 2023. Not many, but there's some. Then the pro features that were added in May 2023, and some updates that we've done to existing features. Then we'll talk a little bit about the experimental features that we're working with right now and what those mean, and maybe openly discuss some of the things that we're thinking about or working on, and then maybe answer any questions that we may have during the live webinar. So let's start by mentioning that we got rid of a category inside RightTool that was called Journal Pro, and we moved Show Journal Normal Balances to a free feature, and we also moved one called Journal Balance Visual to a free feature. So both of these are now free, one under QBO Enhanced QBO User Experience, and the other one only under error prevention. Now, I want to cover that really quick. I'm going to go into the settings and point out that we made a major change. And again, just maybe major is it's exaggerating. We made a change. We made a change to the settings here. And what we did is we created a new category called error prevention. Okay, so under error prevention, we moved show journal normal balances that was previously sitting under Journal Pro. And you will notice that Journal Pro is not here anymore. And the reason for that is because we moved show journal normal balances to error prevention, and then we moved journal balance visual into QBO user experience. So those two things used to be pro features, now they're free features. So free users rejoice that. Now under error prevention, we also moved void memo automation that was previously under QBO user experience. We moved that in there. We added rules must have payees on the last release, I believe. So we added that in there. And then we have a new feature that actually, which is bank memo copy in transactions, that we are going to cover. That's a brand new feature for version 12, and we also moved restrict transfers in bank fee to that. So we're trying to evolve in terms of how we categorize these settings, trying to make them as user friendly as possible, as easy to understand, and and based on error prevention and error correction, mostly error prevention. We're gonna use that as a launching platform to see, okay, what are all the things that we can do and build around error prevention in QuickBooks Online. So things are going to go in there. So the nice thing about creating these categories is that it creates a theme or an ethos for us to work on as a platform. So we're thinking, hey, we're going to save you seconds. We're also going to help you prevent errors, which it save you time in the back end, because usually what we end up doing is fixing these errors. So that's what those two things are: show journal normal balances and journal balance visual. Now let's go over and actually there's a correction here, because we actually made a last minute decision to make a feature free. We were going to make this a pro feature, the bank memo copying transactions, and we ended up making a decision and making that free. So we're going to cover both of these: auto print reconciliation report and bank memo copy in transactions. Now, as part of, we're going to show those two. Actually, I'm going to give Mark the control to do that. And then we're also going to cover 3 features that have been added in the last 2 months that we haven't really talked about, and I think we should point it out. So we're going to cover these 3. So Mark, I'm going to make you host, and then I'll basically remind you which feature we're going to do next. And while Mark gets situated, I'm going to monitor the chat. And Mark, so we're going to start with auto print reconciliation report. So start with that.
Yeah. So for auto print reconciliation report, this is something that was asked for. Let's say that you go into reconciling this particular account, and please forgive me for the fact that I'm going to do what I'm just about to do. I understand that for most of you in here, this is going to be like, oh my God, this is a sin. I'm going to press finish now on this reconciliation, and then add adjustment and finish. And what you'll notice is basically once this pops up right here, it will open up a new tab. And once the new tab is loaded up, it will actually print out this reconciliation report for you. So you don't have to manually print it. And like if you normally went about this, you would have to click here. It would take you to this screen. Then you'd have to press the print button, and then you'd have to, go back if you wanted to do something. Now it just does all that in a separate tab, and you can just kind of get your workflow going without having to deal with all of that. So that is essentially the gist of what that is doing. I might have went a little too fast on that. But Hector, you can let me know if there's anything else you want me to let them know about that. But I think that was pretty much the gist of it. Oh, and I think Hector might be too busy focusing on that. Oh, he's okay. Gotcha. Using the restroom. So yeah, and this will work on basically anything that you can reconcile. So if you have credit card and loan accounts and they have reconciliation reports, it will show up on that. Let's see here. Now give us the option to send. You know what? That actually isn't a bad idea, Eileen. Putting that in Excel. I will actually write that down. And yeah, so that is the idea behind that. Export reconciliation report to Excel. Yeah. And then the next thing, yes,
Mark,
Christine.
Mark, did they? I stepped out for a second, so I didn't catch the core of that. So the first concept is, can we get the reconciliation report to export in Excel? And the second layer to this is, should we automatically create a CSV file at the same time that we're pushing the auto print?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely possible. And I think that, like Eileen said, everybody likes, or all accountants like Excel, right?
Right, yeah, of course.
Or CSVs, I guess, in our case. But
okay, that's a good idea. I think if we can pull that off, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it'll take a little bit of time to figure out, but we can do it.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the next part is the fact that you can copy the bank memo over. So let's see here. Let's see if there's actually a bank memo in this thing. So let's edit this. Online banking matches. Okay, yeah, here we go. So the next thing I want to talk about is copy the bank memo from a transaction. So let's say we have this expense. It's an ADP expense that came in from the bank feed. And for whatever reason, either because we didn't have that one thing turned on that automatically adds the memo in, or we changed the memo, what happens is that this is now not a part of the memo anymore. So what we did is we added a thing below that tells you what the memo was and allows you to copy it in. So if I just click this, it will automatically populate that into the memo.
I
Now,
want to add. I want to preface something to that, if you don't mind. So there's also a big problem with the rule creating mechanism. Anytime you create a rule, especially when you create it from bank feed by clicking on create rule right from the transaction, if you do that, automatically QuickBooks is set up to by default to forcefully add the memo of the transaction that you're creating the rule with to all the consequent transactions. So what ends up happening is the true memo that was downloaded from the bank originally that is tied to that transaction gets hidden. It is saved in QuickBooks somewhere in the memory. And in this screen, can you show it where you can see it in this screen if you wanted to? So in this screen, it's hidden inside this little pop-up. But this information is not available in any report. So you can't run a report that compares, for example, the original bank memo versus the one you actually have in there. So what Mark has done is when you go into any screen in QuickBooks, it compares your memo, the one that's in there, versus the original bank memo. And if the memo is different, then it shows up in red in the bottom as a link. Okay, so if you have if you save it and you have some random memo that doesn't match exactly verbatim the original bank memo, and as the refresh comes in, you will see. So if you have something else in there, it will show you in red saying, hey, this is the actual original memo. And then if you click on that, does it replace it or does it append it? Yeah. Oh, so it prepends it.
Yeah. If you have something in there, it prepends it. If you don't, it just replaces it.
Can you highlight the part that was prepended? Yeah. So that's the stuff that you had in there. So and again, unfortunately, the mechanism is not to replace it. The mechanism is to prepend it. We would have to think in our terms if we wanted something that would just replace it and delete the other stuff. That way, it doesn't confuse the user or something. I mean, I can see use cases for both. So I would love to know in the chat if you guys think that this is the perfect way of doing it, to do a prepend, or should it replace it completely? So we'd love to just know your feedback on that. But this is going to be huge for cleanup, for knowing, like sometimes without that original memo, you don't know if there's an error in the transaction. So that's what we mean by error prevention. Okay, so it looks like most people want prepend. Okay, good. So we did it correctly.
Yeah, and this will not show up this will show up unless you already have the memo with all the information in there. So if I refresh this page again, that memo thing wouldn't show up because it's already inside of the memo.
Because it does it. Yeah. And then
I didn't
says,
save it.
somebody's asking, what about append? So this would be like the thing where we have to create a whole bunch of sub options here would be append instead of prepend or replace or something like that. So we'll think about that. We'll add that to the notes here of the suggestions.
Yeah, we'll definitely think about it.
Okay, so now we're going to cover the next three features that were already added. It was just added last month. They were added in May. They were added in April, but we haven't talked about them officially in a webinar. Which is rules must have payees, default text in new bank rules, and the recurrent transaction. So let's start with the bank rule.
Yeah. So let's see here. Is this all transfers? No, this one's fun.
And both of these work, Mark, if you remember, both of these rules must have payees and default text. Both of these are mostly from when you're creating rules from scratch.
The payee one can work even when you're creating it inside of the
go ahead.
transaction. That's why I'm showing that one first. So here we have, a rule that we're trying to create. We put in whatever name we want to put in, and you'll notice that the save button is just completely gone. That is because, and we highlight this inside of here to be like, okay, you got to turn on this payee if you want to be able to save this. And then once I do put in a payee, so I don't know why that would be who we put in, but we're going to do it. Right. You'll see that the save button then pops up afterwards. So it's just kind of a way to make sure you're not forgetting that one step, because we know how annoying that is.
So even though QuickBooks says recommended, because when it's missing, it says recommended, we are doing an extra step here, which we're highlighting in red, letting you know that we did something to change that. And notice that they can't hit save. And this is under error prevention. But obviously that it makes total sense. So,
Yeah.
and this is free. It's a free feature, obviously, because what we want is we want accounting professionals to convince all their clients to use RightTool free and to turn this on to prevent them to having to clean up stuff later on.
Yeah. So that is the payee one. And now let's go to
It's also worth mentioning that that rules drawer, it's about half the screen, where in without RightTool, it's much smaller, just a little tiny thing.
Yeah, that's true. This would be much, much smaller if we were without RightTool on right now, because we by default extend out the size of this drawer.
Yeah.
And then here we have the if you create a rule from the rules page itself and you create a new rule right here, then it will automatically change this to bank text instead of description, because as you know, description, or as many of you know, description is one of those things where it's what QuickBooks thinks is going on with the bank transaction, instead of what actually is in the bank transaction. So we automatically change that. And that's only when you add a new rule from the rules page. There's a very specific reason why we do it that way. But yeah, just keep that in mind. It's something that's available, makes it so it's just one less thing for you to have to think about when you're creating rules.
Right. And in this case, we're seeing two things activated at the same time. We're seeing three RightTool features activated simultaneously. One is bank text being forced as the first option. Two is the payee being highlighted red because it's missing. And three is the expanded size of the rule. So these three things are all available in RightTool free, and you have to have RightTool for these three things to happen. Yeah. I remember we had a discussion around making apply this transaction to all bank accounts instead of one specific bank account. We've never messed with that, right?
I don't believe we have.
Okay.
We might have, but if we have, I don't remember it.
All right. So by default, it starts with all bank accounts, because I think somebody was telling me when they create a rule from bank feeds. Can you cancel that for a second? Go back to your bank feed, banking transactions. Yeah. I think this was an open discussion in our Facebook group. And by the way, if you guys are not if any of you are not part of the Facebook group, look up RightTool in Facebook group and join it. We have tons of great discussions in there. But yeah, this was somebody was asking if it was possible to create a rule from this screen, but it needs to be from this screen, which is the tricky part, and it default to all bank accounts instead of the specific bank account. Because some people were saying, hey, when I create a rule, this thing only goes to a specific bank account, and they have to go back in there and change that to all. So is that something that could be done? We can add that to our list.
Yeah, we can. That can be pretty easy to do.
Okay. All right.
Let's see here. All bank accounts.
Okay, and the next one's going to be expanded recurring transaction name box. That should be pretty simple.
Yeah. So this one is pretty easy. Let's see here. Let's just go here and do it. Make recurring. So yeah, this one is pretty simple. If you've ever been inside of this page, you'll notice that this template name, when this isn't turned on, is pretty small, kind of in the same vein as the bank rules when you're trying to categorize things. But we've actually increased the size just a little bit to make it so you actually have more room to put a name in here that actually makes sense and you can read it. And yeah, just a simple, small change that we've made. It's kind of cool. Okay. There is one more thing I want to talk about that is a free feature, which is it's an enhancement to an already existing feature, which was the auto close pop-ups in the reconcile page and the chart of accounts and all that. If you have that turned on whenever you are in the reconcile page, if you've ever been inside of here and you had that annoying pop-up that says like right here, there's a pop-up that would show up that says, oh, the reason this might not have some things cleared is because it's in some different date period. We have removed that. It does not show up. uh, because you couldn't click out of it. They didn't give you the ability to exit. So we have decided to hide it altogether so it no longer has to bother you. That's a little tiny update. It's harder to show off because it's the absence of something.
Mark, can you go create a new rule for a second? We have someone is reporting one issue with our bank rule situation.
Yeah,
So let's just try to mimic that. So just create the rule. You could do it from here if there's a transfer. Go to
yeah.
transfer. Okay.
Create rule.
Yeah. So you see how transfers don't have payees.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't save the transfer as a rule.
Yeah, I when I saw what he was talking about, I was like, okay, I could understand why that would happen. I
Right.
can put a
This
little
is a
fix in for
scenario
that.
where an accountant actually wants to do a transfer, right? But
We
but
never
yes,
think about transfers because Hector hates them so much.
yeah, correct. All right. So we know what the issue here is. So we have to figure out if we can have this thing detect whether this is I guess a transfer, and then when it's a transfer, it doesn't do the like it should still allow you to save a transfer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I mean I'm kind of torn between it. I'm almost thinking just like don't do transfers, period. Okay.
I do know your brain. I figured you'd think something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. It's good call out. Thank you to the user that pointed that out. Okay, let me take over the screen now.
You want to turn your video on, by the way? Yeah.
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah. I wasn't a host, so so just turn that off for a second. Okay, so let's talk about the new features in Pro. And so we have batch edit in register, we have copy down, we have bulk delete from the vendor, customer detail screen, we have inventory quantity adjustments, and we also made three small enhancements to link to payee, both from the register and from bank feeds, and then one little tiny change in bank rule enhancement that we added. So let's go into that. Let's start with batch edit from the register. And sorry, Mark, I know this is the one that you wanted to cover, but I guess
Yeah, I mean,
I'm covering it now. Okay, so we created a new category, a new setting category called Batch Pro. And then what we did is we took a whole bunch of things that were in different places and we put it under Batch Pro. So anything that's batching, anything that's doing more than one action at a time, we're gonna put it all in this section. That way, you know that anything that's doing more than one thing, pretty much in your behalf, is gonna be a batching tool, and that's also gonna be a theme, or has been a theme um, in um, in the world of RightTool, starting with a copy Excel to journal, which is really the quintessential batching mechanism that really started this whole movement of doing things in batch. So I'm going to turn on batch delete and register, which has a small enhancement, um, and it's let me just turn the other stuff off. I'm going to turn on a bulk delete from vendor detail page, which is a new feature, and I'm going to turn on bank edit register. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to turn on copy down, and I'm also going to click on control number of rows so you can see how that works, and the inventory quantity adjustments enhancement. So you're about to see all these new things that we added. This is the big deal about the May release, is all these things under Batch Pro. So I'm going to hit save here, and let's start with the register. So the first major change you will notice is our first release of batch delete and batch unreconcile had the ability for you to click on batch, select multiple transactions, and there used to be a button here that said unrec that allowed you to physically change a transaction that has already been reconciled to unreconciled. Okay, we moved that. That's no longer there. The unrec button is no longer there, and now it's going to be under the edit button. However, one thing I do want to point out is the mechanism in which we are applying batch delete is much faster than before. If you remember, when you hit delete, it used to take about a second per transaction, right? So I mean, that's still pretty fast in my book. But now, something that Mark did that's significant, it does it a lot quicker. So I'm going to click on delete here, and we're going to see how quickly from the moment I click delete to the moment that this 7 or 8 transactions get deleted all in one shot. So let's go. 3, 2, 1, delete, and then click OK. And OK. What you saw there in this particular case was a pop-up that had one transaction that was linked to another transaction. That's why that little pop-up showed up. Obviously, when you have a payment linked to a bill or a deposit linked to a customer payment, or you have anything that's linked, you're going to have that underlying issue. And so that kind of interrupted the process. So I'm going to try these 4 more. Click on delete, see if that just goes without any interruption. Yes, it is. So
And it might
so
be
that's
because of the fact that some of these are like humongous journal entries.
oh yeah, these are the large journal entries. They take
So it's
longer.
kind of taking its time with some of them, it
Okay,
looks like.
so all right, so let's try something that's more traditional, not humongous journal entries. Let me go into let's pick up one of these transactions. Let's pick another one that might not have. All right, let's do something that's not huge journal entries. Yeah, I apologize. We have 500 line journal entries that are going to be a little bit different because they might have more linked transactions associated with them. So we're going to try this one more time. I'm going to go to batch. I'm going to select a whole bunch of transactions, and I'll just skip the journal entries for now. Okay, and see if this mechanism of deleting in batch shows in a better light. So I'm going to hit delete, click OK, and OK. Okay, and there it is. That all got deleted in one shot. Okay, so the journal entry, long journal entries might be the exception, and Mark and I have to look at
Yeah.
exactly why, but we'll look into that. But there's one interesting enhancement that we've added, which I don't know if you noticed that there's a CSV file here in the bottom left that automatically was created and pushed out. And when I click on that in the CSV file, and I'm going to open it up in Excel. Essentially, what this is a record of what we deleted. Okay, so because batch deleting it's pretty destructive, and some people have come back to us and go, hey, how do I undo a batch delete? You can't do that. That's a underlying problem we have with QuickBooks. There's no way to resurrect the transaction once it's been killed. But the closest thing that we've done is, well, at least we'll give you a quick log of the transactions that were deleted in batch. So at least you can go back and just double check what is it that you just deleted to make sure you didn't delete something you weren't supposed to. So that has been a major enhancement to that. So we took out unreconciled from batch delete and unreconciled feature. Now it's just a batch delete, and then you have the option to automatically push out this CSV. One thing that's missing from this CSV, Mark, is the transaction journal number. The transaction number, like if there's a check number or something like that. We omitted it from here, but I'm pretty sure we'll fix it
Yeah.
pretty soon. I noticed that really quick here while I was exporting. Okay, so that's the batch. That's the changes that we've done to batch delete as a preface to now talk about batch edit. So batch edit it's an entirely different thing. So I'm going to click on batch, and then edit would be something that you press if you want to change any of the fields, again, that are visible in the register. So if you want to change any of the fields that are visible in the register, you can do it from here. Now, I say visible because if there's a split expense transaction where there's maybe 2 lines or 3 lines hitting an expense account, that's not visible here. It'll just say split. Or we have like the source bank account that we can't change from here, at least not yet. So for right now, we can change anything that's visible from here. So for example, let's say that we have, and this is a good example here, we have these 2 transactions that say American Express in the memo, but then probably have the wrong payee in there, and we want to batch change the payee. That would probably be the most important reason where we would do something like this. So for example, let's say I want to make a whole bunch of transactions have a different payee. So I'm going to click on edit, and I'm going to select which of the fields I want to change in batch. So let's say I want to change in batch just the payee, and you can do any of these. An account means the destination account, the expense account, not the source account. You can also change the memo, or you can append to a memo, which makes it even more fun. Okay, so we can do the payee, we can do the account, we can change the date. Sometimes people will put like the wrong year or something like that, and they want to just change it to a date, or maybe they want to backtrack a bunch of transactions and put them back to like 12/31/2022 or something. I mean, that could be just so many different scenarios. And then we have the reconciliation status. So this is a batch editing. This is now batch deleting. It uses the same checkbox system where you click on edit and pick the transactions, but now you're doing a different process altogether. Now this class and location, these are things that you can, account, class, and location. So number 3, 5, and 6 are things that you can already change with the batch reclassify tool. So those are technically not new things, but sometimes you want to just change the expense account from transactions that are only on one particular bank account. So this is a scenario where you would use this instead of using the regular reclassify feature that's inside of QuickBooks. So I'm going to change the payee and the memo, and then I'm going to click on close. So basically these two things get highlighted in black, letting you know these are the only things that RightTool is going to look at. And let's just go to edit. And hold on, give me a second. Let me make sure I'm going to make the screen a little bigger. I'm going to hit cancel for a second. Let me hit edit. And
the check boxes aren't. Press delete and then press cancel real quick. Yeah. I don't know why it does this sometimes. I'll try to figure out what's going on with that.
Okay, so I'm gonna click on batch. I'm gonna select the transactions first. Okay, I'm gonna change the payee to all of these. Then I'm gonna go to the fields. So I'm gonna choose, we set payee and memo, right? Were the two things. Then I'm gonna hit close. And then I'm gonna say, okay, this payee is, let's say American Airlines. And then in the memo, I'm gonna put here Vegas trip. And notice I'm putting it as an append. So once I do these two things, I click on confirm batch, and it'll go in and take all those transactions and change the payee name and also append to the memo. Okay, I'm gonna try this one more time. I'm gonna edit. Instead of appending to the memo, I'm just gonna replace the memo altogether. I'm gonna close that. I'm gonna select the transactions I want to change. Then let's say I want a different payee. Let's say I want to put, I don't know, Jedi Corp. Okay. Whoops. And then I'm gonna put here new memo that is wrong, and we'll go back and kind of see full circle on the other feature that we have when it comes to the memo stuff to see how these two things play in together. Then I'm gonna go to confirm batch, click OK, and then it goes in there, and one by one it changes each of the payee, and it changes the memo. Now I'm gonna just allude really quick to the free feature of the memo. So I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to look at the transaction itself, and notice that down here, if this wasn't a downloaded transaction from bank feed, so it wouldn't work like that. Let's see if we have one that has been.
Is the Jedi Corp not one? It's interesting.
Yeah, there's a couple that haven't been downloaded. Oh, I might not have that feature turned on. Hold on, let me come back here. Let's go to error prevention, bank memo in transaction. So I'm just gonna do full circle on that other demo, just so we can kind of see how these two things play together. So I'm gonna go to edit, and then this is the transaction that I changed the payee.
Well, this one doesn't have the bank match.
So this one wasn't a downloaded bank. Okay, let's see if
that one's good.
Maybe this one right here. Let me go to edit. Okay, so the original thing said VW credit, okay, and I batch changed it to Jedi Corp, okay, obviously to do the example. And then down here, I also have the wrong memo, the overall memo. So notice I have this button here that says original name Volkswagen credit, and I click on that, and it basically appends to the memo in there. And then I could just take these things out here. Whoops, no, that one. Let me take out the other stuff that I added, and then click on save. Okay, so it's just an example of just kind of going full circle on, hey, I could change memos in batch if I wanted to, or append to the memos in batch, and then I could always go back and go back to the original transaction and restore it even if I do it wrong. Last thing I want to show you is batch on reconciling, and there's a very rare use case for this, but sometimes we do want to unclear a transaction manually. Okay, so these are transactions that Let me refresh with everything collapsed so we can see
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
a little bit better. So let's see if we have any of these that are on R. Okay, they're not. That's fine. We'll reconcile this account really quick. And then let's go to 0, today's date, start reconciling. So I'm gonna reconcile this, force reconcile this really quick. And then when we go back into the register, so we go back into this register, we should now see ours in there. So sometimes we want to manually unclear transactions, unreconciled transactions. Typically, when we convert from desktop to online, something was forcefully reconciled, or maybe a user went in there and forcefully reconciled. And the only way to like truly clean out your books from before is to unreconcile manually these transactions, which takes forever, and then go in there and re-reconcile the books. So what we are fixing with RightTool with this batch edit feature is potentially being able to batch unreconciled transactions. So without the tool, you would have to literally click on that R, make it blank, click save, then click yes, and then click yes, and then that's how you manually unreconcile transactions. So if I want to now unreconcile the whole thing, I could use a filter here and go to reconciled and click on apply. That's literally just going to show me the transactions that have been reconciled. I can expand this to 300 to make sure I catch as many as possible. Then I'm going to click on batch to batch edit. I'm going to click on edit. Actually, before I do that, let me do select all.
Yeah, and that's a new thing we put in due to user demand is a select all, so
Yep.
that you can
all
select
on the
all
screen,
checkbox.
all visible on the screen to be clear. So not the
Yes.
stuff that's past the next page. Okay. Then we're going to come in here and we're going to just edit the reconcile status. Click on close. Notice that this has now been highlighted in black. So right now it being blank, so I can go to blank, R and C, right? So I can go manually reconcile everything, manually clear everything, manually unreconcile it in blank. Then I click on confirm batch, click OK, and that's going to go through all the transactions and unclear them for you. Okay, again, there's very specific use cases to this, but I guarantee you the ones that have had to go through the process of manually unclearing, this thing is worth every penny, especially when it's hundreds and hundreds of transactions.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Mark, are there any questions so far? Any comments that you want me to cover, or should I go to the next feature?
So the way that this is, the one thing that Robert just asked is how's this different from the native batch undo in the reconcile tab? This will actually undo the transactions that somebody marked as reconciled. So you know how in the register you can literally go and manually put the R in there for whatever reason. You can unreconcile that. Does it mess with your previous balance? It does, but you would really only want to use this if you're sure.
Like you're actually wanting to mess with the previous balance. This is when you want to mess with the because the previous balance is wrong and you want to sort of start over.
It's not something you'd use every day, that's for sure. It's just something that in the case where somebody has completely messed it up,
exactly,
you can fix it. And then the one other thing is, ironically, I excluded the reference number from the edit because I just figured there would be no reason to edit the reference number in bulk to the same. But apparently some people might want that. So if you do want it for the ref number, then, let me know, because I didn't think it would be a thing, but if it is...
I would love to know a use case for that. So like it would be someone trying to remove a reference number or to add the same reference number across multiple transactions. I would love to understand in what scenario you want to batch edit the reference number. So if you put in the chat there and let us know, just so we understand why would we be developing that in the first place. But yeah, good call out, Mark. Yeah, we took that out because it seems like it's a little bit weird to add in there. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the big boy here, which is copy down. And surprisingly, this is one of those features that Mark would probably admit that at the point that we're in, maybe it didn't take that long to build compared to maybe other things that we've done in the past, compared to the value that it brings. So down here it says copy values in transactions, and then there's an option to control the number of rows. So I'm going to show you both. I'm going to uncheck that and click on save and close. So we're going to do copy down values in transactions without asking me the number of rows. So we can see the exact dynamic of that. And it's typically most valuable like in a journal entry or a bill. So for example, if I go build a journal entry and I'm just going to pick a couple of accounts here in random. Okay. Yeah. Of course, I'm picking the trickiest of all the accounts, right? Accounts receivable, accounts payable. But let's just say we have a journal entry and we have a whole bunch of accounts. It doesn't matter how many accounts we have in there. It could be, we've tested this with like 500 and it works super quickly, super smoothly. So I have a journal entry with all the accounts. And this is something that you always have to manually choose the accounts that you want. But one thing that's a pain in the butt is, let's say this journal entry is supposed to have the same class, the same name, or the same location throughout. It takes forever for you to come in here, copy the customer, come in here, copy the location, come in here, copy the class, okay, and then go in here and then do it again. Again, this will probably take you close to 45 seconds to a minute just to do a 10-line journal entry. So we have this triangle here, which is the copy down feature. So when you click on the triangle, you have to click on that first. Then it tells you, okay, now tell me which cell you want to copy down. Okay, and note that it'll copy down based on which cells have an account associated with it. So they have to have an account associated with it. It uses the account as a reference number to know how far down it needs to go. So then I want to click on this customer job name, just the one name on the top, click on it once, and then it says, hey, are you sure you want to update all the names starting from line 1? And then I'm going to hit OK. And it's essentially what this does is it will automatically add for you that name throughout. Let's do the same thing with location. Click on that, click on location, OK. Let's do the same thing. Click one more time, click on class, click OK. And you're welcome for giving you the greatest gift of all, the gift of time. You can stand up, you can clap. Standing ovations are required at this point. But you can do the same thing with a memo too. So let's say we can do, let's say, memo, and I just type a bunch of stuff, and then I come up here, click again the triangle, click on the memo, boom, and it does it. I don't know if it does it do it with amounts. I mean, that would be
It
it would be a
does, which was slightly trickier than everything else, but
oh, okay,
it's
interesting. So it could do with amounts too. I'm not sure exactly under what circumstance that will work, but I could totally see a world where maybe you're splitting across 10 classes, a tenth of the dollar value, and then you would do something like this for the dollar amount. Okay, something like that. I really don't know, but totally something you could do as well. Okay, and again, this is going to be useful also in a bill, and somehow Mark made it work, I think, in all functional transactions, or invoices,
yeah, basically.
bills, yeah, and everything. So same thing here. Does it work with in the item section too, Mark, or is it just
Yes,
an?
I that was actually the thing that took me the longest on this whole thing was the
Okay,
fact that I had to figure out a way to make it so it worked even in expenses and bills because of the fact they have that weird double category versus item details thing.
yep,
So that was the part of it that actually took the
right. So let's do an example of
longest.
that. So let's say, for example, I want to sell 17 of these across the board. Again, I'm not sure under what scenario we would do that, but let's say 17. I come back here to the triangle, come down, click on the 17, then click on OK. Okay, 17 gets copied throughout. That's a beautiful thing. I come select my customer job, select my class, then go to the triangle, do customer job, OK. Triangle, do class, OK. I mean, honestly, we've done a lot of features in RightTool. I think we crossed the 100 feature mark that we've done. We've gone over 100. I think
We've
active,
worked on 100
right,
features. Now,
right.
not 100 features are in here,
They
but
haven't
we've
all made
worked
it,
on.
right? Yeah, we have over 70 functional features. But I'm saying after working so long for so many, for so, with so many features, I could probably tell you this is probably my favorite, and it might be my favorite for a very long time, because this particular thing is just so emblematic of stuff that will save you time and stuff that QuickBooks should have. And if I want to predict the future, if QuickBooks into it were to copy RightTool, like copy us, and yeah, it's a play on words. It's called copy down. If they were to grab a feature that we have and immediately add it to QBO based on like just the sheer impact that this could have, it would probably be this one, and it would be a huge compliment if they do. By the way, so because this is something that should be built in. So click on save and just quickly. Oh, I gotta pick the vendor name. Click on save and just quickly create that bill. Whether you're using expenses or items, it could do that. Now I'll ask an open question because we had some feedback on this copy down. People people have asked if they can do something different than copy down, not just copy all the same account down. People have thought about, is there a way it can automatically populate every class just one by one? So just go through the entire class list and do one by one. Or can they populate every location? It would be very tricky to do every customer because that would be a humongous list, or very tricky to do every account because that would be a humongous list. But like, is there a scenario where maybe we can replicate the pattern? So you have these 4 classes, hit a button, and they just keep copying the next 4. So I would love to know your feedback in terms of like where or how copy down could be enhanced or be taken to the next level here. So that's copy down.
Well, we do have one additional subsetting for that, by the
Oh,
way.
that's right. That's right. Thank you for reminding me of that. So let's go over that. Yes, this came directly from user feedback. It's called control number of rows. So I'm going to save that. And Mark, do you have this specific use case in terms of why they wanted that?
I don't know, but I know it was asked for by multiple people. So I mean, I was like, I'm not going to question it.
Okay. All right. So
The way I have it set up is actually a twofold way that it's set up. You can use it kind of just the way that the normal copy down is, and we can actually just see what happens when you do the copy down.
yeah. So let's do this. I have a 30-line journal entry, and let's say that for whatever reason, the first 10 lines get a class, the second 10 lines get a second class, and the last 10 lines get another class. I guess that would be a particular use case. So I'm going to pick a class up here, click on copy down, then click on it, and then it's asking me, how many lines would you like to go down? So in this case, I'm going to put 30. No, sorry. I would do 10, hit OK, and it would just copy 10 of them. And then I would go to the next line and then do the next class, click on the triangle, click on this one, and then put 10, and then hit OK, and then go to the next one. Let's say this is some other class here, that one. Click on the triangle, click on that, and then hit 10. I think that was probably the use case on why people wanted to do that. Now, one thing
you would
to
put
notice,
9, but
yeah, one thing to notice is I'm putting 10, but it should have really been 9 because I have to think that the first one it's included in there. And another interesting use case to this is I'm going to create a let me create a new journal entry, a totally blank journal entry. Is sometimes you want to start copying down without the actual account being present first. So you want to force how many you want to have in there. So for example, let's say I want to have 3 classes. I want to do 5, 5, and 5 before we even start entering accounts. So this would be a good scenario where I would go in there. Let's say locations. So I would go in there, choose the first location, click on this, and then copy this 4 times. Click OK. Then go to the next location, click on this, then do 4 times, hit OK, and then we go to the next one. Whoops, hold on. Next one, location, click on that, and then 4 and hit OK. Because prior to being able to force the number of rows in there, so prior to that, it was based on how many accounts were used. So the lines didn't have an account, it wouldn't go any farther than that. So by telling it the number of rows, you actually force it to go beyond that.
yeah.
Okay.
And Kelly asked the question, can you add a feature to copy to the bottom from a specific row versus having to add a number of rows? That's how it is by default. So if Hector was to let's say go to let's just copy from non-US e-commerce, I guess.
Okay.
So we just click on the arrow and then
okay, so you want to go from non-e-commerce down. Yeah, so if I can click anywhere in the middle, and in this case I can leave, if I leave it at 0, it works the default way.
Yeah.
So I click OK. No, that didn't work.
Oh, you're not on version 15. I don't know why, but I had to update it last night for whatever reason.
Okay. All right. So, but I think what she's saying is, I don't think she's saying that. I think that what she's saying is, if I can read between the lines here, let me open up another journal here. I think what she's asking for is a little bit different. I think what she's asking for is, let's see. Let me do something like this. I'm gonna delete that. I think she's asking for this. I see. And then you guys tell me if this is correct. So hold on. Okay. So I think what she's asking is, look, there's a whole bunch of blanks here, okay? And let's say what's up here is this one, refunds to customer, whatever. I want to be able to click on the triangle and then click on some blank here, and it go up and grab from the last one that had values and bring it all the way down. So who asked that? Who was he asked that question?
Kelly Gibbs.
Kelly Gibbs. Is that what you were alluding to? Is can it just grab from like magnetically find the last one that had one and bring it all the way down instead of you having to know the number of rows? Is that what you were asking? So instead of copy down, it would be like, yeah, I guess there'll still be some version of copy down.
And there will probably be quite a few updates we're making to this as time goes on as
Oh
we
yeah,
expand this feature.
Yeah. So okay. So Cindy says copy to the end. So this is always going to copy to the end. Let's just be clear. This feature always will copy to the end. So if I click in here on the last one and click OK, it will copy all the way down to the end, and the end in the end is technically the last one that has an account.
Yeah.
So okay. So Kelly's saying no. I was thinking was if you're in the middle, then can it go to the end? Yes, of course. So if I'm in the middle somewhere here, and I change this to class, hashtag class, I click on the triangle and click on that, and then go OK. It will copy the rest of them.
It's a long journal entry, huh?
Yeah, down. See, so it actually does work like that already. So that should work on version 15. I'm still on version 14 for some reason. I'm sure it will update as soon as there's a refresh coming up. Okay, so let's move on to bulk delete from vendor or customer details. Okay, so let's see what that is. So if I happen to be in a vendor screen, so let's say I am on expenses, vendors, and I have to be inside a specific vendor detail screen. So it won't work from here because there's no transactions to see. So when I click on that, okay, and let's say I want to get rid of all these transactions for whatever reason, I want to delete these transactions. So I can select them as normal because I think that this feature was it snuck in here already in the back? There it is. So this is one of those weird features that are snuck in into the regular UI of QuickBooks, so we don't have to add another button for bulk delete. So if you select them here, whatever you want to bulk delete, click on batch actions. It's right there, bulk delete. So you click on that and OK, and it will delete those transactions for you. It did that. Oh, by the way, this one doesn't export a CSV. Mark, you think we can add that in there?
Yeah, we can do that in easily enough. In fact, we could actually probably do a better export to CSV for this one. There's very specific reasons.
Okay. Okay. So bulk delete from CSV on a vendor customer. Okay. I think that CSV backup, it's really important for people just deleting in batches. Just people just want to be able to control. You just can I just have an idea of what I just deleted? Just because, again, because of the problem that with QuickBooks you can't really undo a delete. Okay, let's go over inventory quantity adjustments. It's also a new feature added in May. So let's go into an inventory adjustment screen. So inventory quantity adjustment. Okay, and so if you have a lot of inventory items, you have to go in there and select each one by one like this if you want to make sort of a batch update to all your inventory items. So the first underlying feature that we added is a simple add all inactive items. What this does is when you click on that and you click on it and just kind of let it be for a minute, what it does is it opens up the drop down window and it knows which are all the items that you have, and it'll auto populate one by one every single active item you have in that drop down window. So that saves you tons of time if you want to just generically go in there and take a look at what your inventory is currently and what your adjustment would be. But the other killer feature about this, and this started with a script I wrote with ChatGPT, actually. I used ChatGPT to help me write a script to do it all on the screen, which is to replace a particular amount in there in batch going down. So for example, if I click on make all 0, it will go in there and make all those inventory items 0. So I'm going to go to make all 0. It goes in there and zeroes out all your inventory. So if you ever had to do a QBO cleanup where you had to zero out all the inventory because you were no longer using inventory, or you wanted to start over, or you wanted to close the books because there was some negative inventory just sitting there, you do that one click and then click on save and close, and boom, you literally just adjusted all your inventory to 0 in one shot. Huge. This is very, very big for inventory cleanups. Okay, so those were the 4 big boys, the 4 major features we added to that. So do you want to show these enhancements, Mark? I'm going to give you make you host so you can show those 4 things.
So and link to payee from register, payee history link, and bank rule enhancements. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So link to payee from register, that's something that we added and we never really talked about it in a webinar, which is being able to go in the vendor detail screen in the register while looking at a particular payee in a transaction. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. So just if you open up any of these transactions, you'll see that this little payee history button shows up right over the payee. This is something to keep in mind. You do need to actually have a payee in here or else it won't go anywhere.
Right.
It does show up even if there's not a payee there. So that's the reason why I put that in there as a disclaimer.
Reminder. Yep.
But once you do that, it'll open up into the vendor detail page. And this is especially for people who, again, this was explicitly asked for, was for the ability to bulk delete from this page.
Right.
So it's kind of like working together to make it so it's just like one step, like boom, 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 done. That's at least the viewpoint I have on it.
Right. And this one was specifically requested to go to this page, which is different than the original payee history that we created from bank feeds. So if you want to show the 2 payee histories, the old style and the new style, so people can appreciate the addition that we added to it.
Yeah. And is this a pro feature? Yes, I think it is because it's in register and
these are
register pro.
Features. Yep.
Gotcha.
Pro features.
So yes, this is a pro feature. Yeah. What was the? I literally put the name in I put the detail, the features in my head. I said them out loud.
Same payee history from the screen, but you have to change the settings so it goes to the report versus the vendor detail. So we're going to show both.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, and one thing somebody just asked is the vendor available to link to a customer as well? I believe so. If any of these had customers, let's see. I guess this is a customer job. Let's see if that has anything.
Yeah, it works.
So yes, this goes to customers instead if it has that. So yes, it does work with both. There's actually a good number of questions, but I'm sorry, I didn't see them all.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll go over at the end. Yeah, still got some time.
You were saying that we could go. You wanted to look at what the original.
Yeah, the pay history. Yeah, just change the subsetting of the pay history.
Well, for the pay history, there is no subsetting for the register version. To be clear,
right? Register goes always to the vendor detail screen.
Yes, but we did add a feature inside of the bank feed payee history link that opens the detail page, and that's what we added the subsetting for. So it used to be that if you were in here, it would go to a report that had everything. But now if you put the subsetting on, it will go to the actual like detail page for that customer. So yeah, just come in here and click, and for whatever reason, it's taken its time today.
Yeah, the report was my original idea. Right now it's set up vendor details, so switch it to the report. Yeah, so the report was my original idea, and then I think it was Bill Robinson in our Facebook group said, "Hey, can we get from the register to be able to go to the detail page?" And since he already wrote the code to go to the shortcut to the detail page, we made it an option. So when you're in bank feeds, you can either go to the report or the detail page.
Yeah. So if I click here, pay history, now it goes to just report.
Right. It goes to report. That's all dates, by the way. And this was inspired because the categorization history built-in functionality in QBO only limits it to 12 months. So the report itself goes to the entire history, and you can change it afterwards. Again,
and you can also see class and location.
That's exactly part. Class and location. So you can see contextually what classes, what locations, what accounts you paid from, what categories you've used for that same payee in the past.
Yeah.
And the last one, Mark, is bank rules enhancements. We made a couple changes on the bank rules and
Oh,
enhanced
great.
bank rules, and also something with the class. I think something with the class rule that we changed.
Yeah, we've changed just a whole bunch of things here. I mean, I think this is just like when you come over here, you can say, okay, I want to see all the rules without payees. I want to see auto add onlys. I want to see without classes. You can just easily do that. We've recently revamped this so it's just a drop down box.
Yes, exactly.
And sorry, I'm looking at the chat. That's
Yeah.
Tiffany. If you could email me that, just email me it, and I will work on it. And then over on this side, you can filter by whatever account exists in here. So if you want to see all the rules that are dealt with advertising and promotions, you can click on that. And yeah, these are the enhancements we made. And then if you had deleted accounts, it shows up with that big, ugly red box around it, which is good, but it's ugly. So you can press this button to hide deleted accounts, and it'll clear them out for you for the time.
Yeah, I wonder if we could just show the deleted accounts, so we can then batch delete those, or just focus on batch editing those. Because if you have a rule with a deleted account, you probably should be fixing that rule in the first place. So I think we almost need to just add a drop down there that says with deleted accounts only. I like the one that says hide deleted accounts, but then one setting that is just showing the ones that had deleted accounts.
Makes sense.
Okay, and one other feature that we added, Mark, that we actually never even talked about, as I just realized that this is not even in our release notes page, which is the filter that we added to the register screen. Can you show us?
Oh yeah, that's because it's literally something that just completely slipped my mind.
And what is that? What is that feature tied to?
This is tied to the batch, so admittedly,
to batch edit.
Yeah.
Okay, it's tied to batch edit. Okay, so show that one.
Yeah. So what this does is it basically just takes out this section right here where it has the find, and it moves it into the search, or into this bar, so you can just easily access it. And this will search only by memo and ref number.
It won't do amounts. It won't do amounts.
It won't do amounts. It will search only by memo and ref numbers. So if you need to find something,
but the one inside the filter can do amounts.
The one inside the filter can do amounts, yes. And let's see here. Is it just going to be working weird on me? Okay. Yeah. Lowercase. That's a fix. That's a bug fix.
Okay. Fair enough. It needs to be lowercase?
Yeah. Fix filter. Which is kind of weird if I'm going to be completely honest with you, but whatever.
Okay. And it could do numbers too? Or a specific number?
So you can do a number, but if you do, it's going to be for like the ref number instead of instead of like amounts.
I think in this case, the real useful thing about this is to filter by a memo. So and then go in there and reclassify the payee, for example. I think that would be a good example. So if you go in there and do the ADP thing again. Do an ADP filter again. Okay. And then all these happen to have ADP as a payee, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So like I think this is a good example. Batch edit these and change it to something else. So just batch edit that.
Let's see here. Edit. And then we want to change the payee or the memo?
Yeah, just the payee. Change the payee. Okay.
Change the payee. Close this.
Select all. Select all.
Oh, yep. Select all.
Yeah, and put it different.
Here, employees.
You can put that. That's fine.
That's fine. Yes, we kind of hijacked the screen a little bit, so there's some weirdness that goes on.
Yeah, we hacked it. All right, so I guess the scenario here would be that that we have the wrong payee in this case. So we're going to show you we have the wrong payee, and we're using the memo filter as a proxy to figure out what the correct payee should be. Okay, because we do a lot of sort of wrong payee cleanup. So this could be a way in which because this is like a lot of transactions, right? It was like 50 of them. Okay. So imagine you're sitting here and you're like, hey, I got all these transactions that really should go to payee ADP instead of whatever they have now. You use that filter, only show ADP, and then reclassify the payee from there, or whatever else you want to reclassify from this screen.
Yeah. And the reason that we made it so it only filters on memo and reference number is because sometimes if you have a reference number or a memo where it's like 3,000 or something like that, then you'll end up getting payments or deposits that have that number in it too. And
Correct.
it's
Yeah,
like,
I think
it's
memo.
not really,
I think memo is the right thing
yeah.
to use here. Okay. All right. I'm gonna take over the screen again. If you want to, please monitor the chat. See if there's any questions. We can start answering those. I want to show you one quirky little feature that we've actually not so quirky, but I'm gonna show you two features that are worth mentioning because
It's been a
they're
big update.
It's a big update. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
big update. It's probably the biggest update we've ever had.
Right, and we waited a month to release a lot of these things that were already in development in April. So we have two features that are live now. They're under beta pro. It's only for pro users, but they're live now. One is the report analysis AI. This uses ChatGPT to add notes to reports, and the other one is enable scripts, which is going to be probably less than a 1% user usage. That one's really made for me because I'm experimenting with like my own sort of homegrown scripts. So I'm going to show you both. So I'm going to go save and refresh, and then let's start with the report analysis. And I've covered this in other webinars, just sort of showcasing the power of AI, ChatGPT, that sort of thing. So imagine you are you're about to prepare a report for an end user, and you have a balance sheet here in front of you. Let's do last fiscal year. Okay. And this balance sheet may have things that seem right, that seem wrong, whatever it is. I mean, just as an accountant, you'll go through the balance sheet and you will point out what's wrong. One of the cool things that we can do is we can ask ChatGPT, just kind of like before I start doing any analysis, I want to say, what does ChatGPT think about this balance sheet? So I'm going to click on Insert ChatGPT Report Analysis. Notice that it says XYC Corp, just to kind of show you that we don't send the company name to ChatGPT, but we are taking the balance sheet, every single account name and dollar amount in the balance sheet. If there's something compromising in there and you don't trust ChatGPT, don't send it. Okay, we can't take responsibility over you choosing to send something to ChatGPT. We don't know what ChatGPT does with this information. But long story short, you take the balance sheet, send it to ChatGPT. You can change the prompt if you want to. We created a base prompt for you. You can change it if you want to. You click on Ask ChatGPT. It literally takes the information on the balance sheet, it copies it. Just imagine it's pasting it into ChatGPT. It's getting the answer. It's transferring the answer via API through RightTool, and then it's going to type the answer in the comments, in the notes of the report.
Yeah,
Now,
and to be clear, it will only paste in the date range and the stuff in the report. It will not put in any of the header information that would tell, like, oh, this is the company name.
right.
That
So
way,
we're not sending the company name to ChatGPT. Correct. Yeah, but if you have like, if you have an account called bribes to politician XYZ or something like
yes,
that.
that will be included.
Yeah, that will be included because that's the name of the account, right? So here's an analysis. Okay, so it says here, there's some accounts that seem strange, like this account called the warning check account below, and here's a negative amount. And then it says, this account appears to be related to a vehicle owned by employee. I don't know, maybe it had the word auto in there. I'm not sure how it even came up with that. But and then we have an account called personal expenses. Okay, this seems strange. And then we have retained earnings that has a relatively low balance. So whatever it is, so it just goes through its own analysis, and I've in many aspects of it, the analysis could be completely wrong. In some cases, the analysis could be half right. At that point, you could just edit the notes and change it to whatever you want. But it created the starting point for you. It created a roadmap for you. But if you do it with a P&L and tell it to analyze expenses or whatever, it will do that, and it will do that really well. It will do it really in a very interesting way. So you definitely want to test that out because it's pretty impressive what the things that it can do. And the last thing here is scripts. Okay, so we might need a drink to explain this one, but essentially, I'll give you an example. We have a Facebook group for RightTool users, and people request stuff all the time. Okay, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do that? I have to. Mark is really the only programmer in the group, of Mark and Patrick. Patrick works behind the scenes. Only programmer. I cannot like help Mark with programming stuff, but I can experiment with writing some. Like if I have an idea in my head or I'm getting some feedback, I can write some scripts that run inside the browser and change certain things in it. Like for example, the adjusting all inventory items down to zero started as a script that I wrote. Okay, a script that I wrote, but that ChatGPT wrote for me. So if you happen to be experimenting with scripts, and I will be creating some content around this and putting it on YouTube in terms of how I build scripts, you can add your own scripts in here and you can see how they work when you run them. So let me give you an example of a script that I wrote. Somebody went in there and told somebody in the Facebook group went in there and said, "Hey, when I'm in the sales screen, is there a way I can see transactions are under a certain dollar amount?" Okay, so I wrote a script that says transactions below a certain dollar amount, and I may have written the script prior to an interface change in here, so it might not work. Let's see. So I'm gonna put here, let's say 50, and then press OK. And if the script, okay, the script did work this time. Great, thank you. And it just went in there and it just removed all the rows that had anything that was above $50. You can see that in there. You see it right there on the, in this case, on the actually, or
Well,
did it
and you
not
might want
work?
to filter first on uh, is it paid or is it
Yeah,
open, I think.
yeah, let's just do invoices and let's do, let's say, open invoices. That might be an easier sort of use case. So, so let's say, let's do it again, below $100 and click OK. Okay, there it is. That worked. So it's just an example. Okay, and again, I'm going to be building scripts in here. I'm going to be loading them in here, and these scripts at some point might become RightTool actual features. Okay, the point is that Mark actually built this for me so I can add my own scripts. And just to give you a general idea for what the scripts look like. And again, this is getting like wonky into like nerdum. However, like like at this point, I come to the realization that like I need to learn how to do programming. I don't know if I'll be able to learn that at 42 years old, but I'll tell you. But this is what the script looks like. Okay, and then and I don't know what any of this stuff means. I mean, I'm starting to learn a little bit of what it means, but generally, like I couldn't write that myself. And as a matter of fact, I think Mark even helped me change some of the text in this. But you can have ChatGPT help you write some of these things and experiment with that. Again, we'll go back to that. For the average user, it's probably not even that important. But I'll show you another example, something that Mark and I have been trying to tackle for a while, and we're having a kind of a tough time with it, is to speed up the printing process. This is one of the things that just, it's so annoying in QBO. How many clicks you have to do to print an invoice, for example. So this is the current state of QuickBooks is to print an invoice. I have to click on printer preview, then printer preview, 2 clicks. Okay. Then in this screen, I have to, let's say I want a PDF as well. I have to click on download to get the PDF. Then I have to click on print one more time to take me to this page. Okay. So it was like so many clicks to go to print. So I wrote a script in here. And I'll see, I'll just show you what the script looks like. Again, it's Greek to me and Greek to everybody else, but that's what the script looks like. And then when I come in here, we go to download and go to print. So in a single click, what I programmed it to do is to download the PDF as you see it over here, and then speed up the process and get me right into the print page. Again, again, I'm negotiating with seconds at this point, but that's the theme of RightTool, right? It's supposed to save you seconds. So at some point in time, we would love to implement a sort of a quick print feature that's built into RightTool as an actual feature. For now, if you go into scripts, that's in there. Okay, so these two things are two actually working scripts. So as I create more scripts, I will make them public. We will add them in there. So if you ever want to go into script writing mode, you could add your own scripts in there.
Yeah, and this is something where there's really two reasons behind it. One is if you have something that's a feature you really want to get done, but you're like, I don't want to wait for Mark to do it, and you could find a programmer who can, then you can do that. And then also maybe one day, possibly for features that we're not like 100% sure about implementing, we can put it into like I wouldn't say a store, but like a database where people can kind of copy them in and bring their own scripts, so they can be like, hey, these are features I specifically want
Oh,
to import.
a community database of
Yeah.
like scripts, that would be amazing, because you would literally be helping us make RightTool better, right? Because so this is like, the closest thing to like an open source API type of stuff that we have, which is, if you can write it in a script, in a JavaScript, and it runs on your page, you can share it with us, email it or whatever, and it'll be in there. It needs to be JavaScript, and it needs to be something called bookmarklet format. So it's very specific. It's a JavaScript and bookmarklet format. And again, I will be creating a video in the next couple of weeks, kind of explaining how I stumble upon this, and how this works, so you guys can test this on your own. So it's certainly the fun part about RightTool has been doing things very unexpected. This is probably one of the most unexpected things, that we have done from the very beginning. As a matter of fact, I didn't know bookmarklets scripts exist. That was a thing until like maybe like 2 months ago. And from there, I've been playing programmer at night and trying to figure out ways to do things. Again, I feel bad for Mark, because he works really hard at doing these things, and honestly, about 20% of the time he spends creating new features, and the other 80% is cleaning up after all the changes that Intuit makes on the pages, and things that you don't see, but they change structural things in the HTML that requires him to go back and rewrite the tool, the features, but also rewrite different versions of them. And it needs to detect which version of QuickBooks you're in, because as a power user, that sometimes you have one client where the screen looks different than somebody else's client, and you can bet your butt that if the screen looks different across two clients, one script won't work the same in both sides. So he has to sort of program for all the iterations and versions of QBO that are out there. Okay, we don't want to go past the 90-minute mark. We got about 9 minutes left. Are there any questions or comments, suggestions, or tell us in the chat, out of all the things that we covered today, what is your favorite feature that we covered so far? The free features and the pro features. I would love to know which is, by far the two. And just to remind you, we have auto print, reconciliation report, we have bank memo copy in transactions, we have batch edit in the register, copy down, bulk delete from vendor, customer detail, inventory quantity adjustments, and I guess scripts would be the other one.
That's not even counting the fact that we didn't actually touch on the fact that we updated how journal entry import works.
You know what? Since we got 8 minutes left, I think we have time for that. You want me to demo it, or
yeah, you can demo it. Yeah,
I can do it. So I think it's worth truly mentioning that the reason why Mark and I are together, and we're going to go back to like August of last year, is because I told him that I wanted to be able to copy and paste from Excel into a journal entry. This is where everything got started, from this. And then Mark had a kind of working prototype that didn't really work. I mean, it worked once and it didn't really work. And this has been something that he's been chasing for a very long time, to try to make this one feature as good as possible. And he stumbled upon a different approach to this particular screen that has significantly improved how this screen works. Okay, because this would be one of these features that people love, but most people that use it will admit that, hey, like half the times it's not working correctly. So I think we're at to a point where it's working just a lot better than before. So I'm gonna turn on two key features. One is export journal to CSV, and the other one is breakout account number. Okay, I'm exporting this feature first. I'm turning on this feature, and I'm also turning on copy Excel to journal. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the premise that we have a journal entry in Excel. For whatever reason, we happen to have a journal entry in Excel. I'm gonna try to pull up a big journal entry if I can find one. Okay, so we happen to have a journal entry that looks like this in Excel. Just imagine a world that you have this in Excel. I'm going to export this in Excel, and I'm going to save a new. That way we're in a brand new transaction. So imagine two things are happening. One, let me make the font bigger. One is too big. So one is I happen to have a journal entry in Excel. Typically, it's going to look like this: account, debit, credit, description, name, location, and class. And also, let's also work under the assumption that your account names match QuickBooks and your description matches QuickBooks, and the name, all this stuff actually matches QuickBooks. Okay. I'm going to delete this for a second up here. Okay, and you want to have your journal entry go from here to um, from Excel to QuickBooks. Now I'm just gonna do a couple things here. I'm gonna add a bunch of different things in here. That way we have uh, just different information coming in throughout. So I'm gonna copy the data from this journal entry. I'm gonna copy account name, debit, credit, description, name, location, class. I can go all the way down and just seriously copy a significant amount. I'm just gonna do this group here to see, so you can see it. So I'm gonna hit a copy. And then I'm going to come in here, and there's not right click paste, because that wouldn't work. Okay. Because it would just think you're pasting the entire thing into one cell. So we're going to come up here to this right tool option that looks like it's kind of like a paste icon. Click on that. And then what this will do, and you just have to have a little bit of patience. When you click on that, right tool goes through a cycle, and it goes through, okay, what are my names? What are my accounts? What are my classes? What are my locations? And it puts it in a sort of verification system in the backend. Then this screen, this is a right tool screen, has a little box that says paste here. You have to right click and paste in there. And then it will do a check. It would say, hey, I want to just make sure before I start pasting that these accounts and these names and these classes and these locations actually match my database, because many times people will just type random things in Excel and try to paste it in there. And if they don't match exactly, it's just not going to work. It's not going to like try to make something work. It needs to be very precise. And you have to skip account numbers. You can't put the account numbers in there. Okay? It needs to be just the account names. Or does it work with just the account numbers, or it has to be
It
the
does
account
work
name?
with just the account numbers, so you could use only account numbers.
Okay, yeah, that's the trick. So either just the account number or the account name with a sub account, which is really where things get tripped up, with a sub account cleanly in there. And then you click on run it, and then what happens is, and I don't know if you noticed before, it's done. It's ready, right? Prior to this major update, it goes through a cycle, and sometimes it'll miss like a line or it'll miss a cell just because of how we have it programmed. The way Mark has built it now is built in such a way that that it automatically populates it, so it makes it super quick.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you actually left out a few of the top things, because of the fact that what happens here is that for whatever reason, I don't know why this is a thing with the names specifically, but the name section, it is there. I promise you, it's just invisible for whatever reason. It only populates once you press save.
I'm going to illustrate that. Okay. So I went in there and I click on run it. So I pasted it in there. For whatever reason, the name is not sitting there, but it is in there, but it's like, it's a weird thing of how we have it set up. So it is in there. So I'm going to come in here and finish balancing this journal entry. And then I'm going to click on save. Okay. And then once I click off, what do you mean it's not balanced? Give me a second.
It's just wanting to fight you.
Okay.
You might want to just delete that whole.
So I'm going to click on save. And then after I click on save, it shows up. So it's there. And this is a very peculiar thing with just pasting it in there. And we'll probably work this bug out. But it's something with like how it displays. So it's there. So just kind of trust it is there. Hit save. And then it should show up. Okay. All right. So what was the verdict, Mark, in terms of what was the favorite feature for everybody?
I think you already knew before you asked the question what the favorite feature was going to be quite honest with you.
I think maybe I primed it. I could have had some influence on that answer. But yeah, I think I agree with almost everybody here. Copy down is the best thing. Okay. I think that's it. We're done. 90 minutes. We covered a lot of new features. This is going to go into YouTube at some point this
Hmm.
afternoon or tonight. And if you have any questions, actually join the Facebook group. We have 101 people here. Can, if you're not part of the Facebook group, can you put no? I just want to know whether or not I should keep telling people to join the Facebook group, or can I just assume that everybody is on the Facebook group? Okay. So we have a Facebook group. You just have to search for RightTool and you want to join it. Even if you don't have a Facebook account, you want to join it because every time there's a bug, people report it here and we respond to it super quickly. Every time there's a feature suggestion, you actually will see Mark and I talk about the feature like publicly. So you guys can kind of understand like sort of the struggles that we go through on building this. And this will help you become a better user of RightTool because you start getting some understanding on how on the things that we can do and can't do because everybody suggests things are it's a lot of things are impossible to do, right? But as you start learning about a development process, you become really entrenched into how right tool works, and at some point in time, I know a lot of you have told publicly that you can't live without right tool. That means a lot to us. So that's why we have its own Facebook group. It's already having I forget how many members we have now. We have over
837 says it on the left.
837,
Yeah.
837, quite a bit. And we have about 2,700 to 3,000 people that are actively using RightTool, from which about 600 plus are paying for the pro features. So I would venture to say the vast majority of members are the pro members. So we try to give the most amount of attention to feedback that comes from pro members, of course. All right, so that's it. Any feedback you guys have, just go into the Right Tool Facebook group or email Mark and I. My email's pretty public. It's Hector at GarciaCPA.com and Mark is Mark at Monkey.com. We'll end it here. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next one. Maybe we'll have one in June, maybe not. I'll be traveling, so we'll see. Maybe Mark, if we have any updates to showcase in June. We might have another one in June, but for sure we'll have an update webinar in July. Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
Bye.